Okay, this is a traditional bow. It's a Bowdark. This bow is about 22, 24 years old, made out of Bowdark. This is the one I use for my cornstalk shoots. Bowdark is something traditionally used by Native Americans. So it's just a traditional wood, a tree, where you might have a recurve that's made machine-wise, manufactured. There's still some wood, but there could be some fiberglass, different material made. They call it a recurve because there's already a curve in the bow. Where a traditional bow, even though it may have a little curve, it's all straight when it's not strung up. The sizes of bows really depends on the individual. The taller you are, you want a longer bow because your draw is longer. What that means is how far you pull the arrow back. A traditional bow each bow is different because of the size, the length of wood that you cut down. And so even though you might like to have a longer bow, it doesn't mean you're going to have a longer bow. And so that's also why it's good to learn how to make your strings, because every traditional bow is going to be different length. So the difference in a recurve is it's already got the curve in the bow. It's manufactured that way. You still feel all the weight as you pull it back, just like a traditional bow. This is a different kind of recurve bow that's a takedown, which means you can actually unscrew this and take the limbs off. So that's why it's called the takedown. You still have the recurve. These are called no gloves, so it protects your fingers from getting raw and sore. And then we also have a compound bow. Compound bow has the cams and pulleys on the end. So unlike a recurve bow or traditional bow, you feel, if it's a 50-pound bow, you feel 50 pounds here all the way back. On a compound bow, it might be 50 pounds here, but as you pull it back, it lets up to about 20 pounds. We use all the bows except the compound bow in the cornstalk shoot. And let me explain. The different divisions are the traditional bow, which is a handmade bow. We have the recurve bow division, which is this. You're allowed to use any recurve you want. The strings that are made for the traditional bows are a machine made. Traditionally, they were made out of squirrel hides. Red squirrels, they would stretch those skins, and then they would cut the skins in circles until in a fine, narrow stretch, and then you'd actually let those stretch and braid them together. Now, some of them use different materials, but that's what I was taught. I do want to say one more thing on the traditional bow. There's also primitive division, and what that means is this is a cornstalk arrow, but in primitive, not only do you have the traditional bow, the string has to be handmade, not machine made. The cornstalk arrow has to have traditional feathers, turkey feathers, nocks, has to be a handmade shaft, and the spike, where this one is a machine made, actually it's a welding rod welded onto a field tip. In that division, it has to be handmade, hammered out metal. So primitive is very respected, but very few people still do that. For the cornstalk shoot, we're going to need a cornstalk rack, which consists of about 400 to 500 cornstalks, and then we'll go out into the woods and we'll cut some strong, heavy limbs that will hold those cornstalks in place. These actually came from Mr. Foreman up at Oaks. He gathered them for us the end of last year, and we've been storing them since last year. So these cornstalks have never been shot. Cornstalks can last 2 to 3 years. Depends on how much they're shot, how well you take care of them. That membrane in the middle, inside, is still soft. The drier they get, the more brittle they'll get. You want to tie the top of the stakes off and pull them close till you get the height that you're looking for. And I do a little bit on both sides so they don't slide out, because cornstalks will slide because they're slick. If I don't do this, they'll all be on the ground. The sound of an arrow hitting a cornstalk is very distinct, and to me, very exciting sound to hear. Due to the amount of cornstalks we have, the cornstalk rack's gonna be a little bit shorter, but I can still pull this in more and hopefully fluff them up some more to get the desired height that we want. We want it to be close to 3 foot high, which may not seem like a lot here, but when you're 85 to 100 yards away, big difference. Okay, in the cornstalk chute, you're going to see a lot of different styles. You'll see some that will pull the bow back and get a high arch at it on the arrow so it comes up and comes down at an angle. You have some that their bow is strong enough and they've practiced enough that they don't have to have an arch on it. The difference is if you don't have an arch on your arrow and it hits the cornstalk rack, it may not go through as many cornstalks. And the whole purpose of the cornstalk competition is how many cornstalks your arrows go through. And that's also why you have a spike on the end of your arrow. If we only had a field point, that might go through 2 or 3, 4 cornstalks. You add that spike on the end and you're liable to penetrate up to 10 and 12 cornstalks. In the cornstalk chute during the holiday, we have several divisions. One is a 9 and under, one is 10 to 12, and then we go into the traditional, the primitive division, then we do the recurve, and then after everybody's finished shooting those divisions, we come down to the archery range and do the compound. If you've thought about archery, didn't know how, didn't know where, didn't know how, and heard of the cornstalk chute, here at Cherokee Nation, we have the Joe Thornton Archery Range. If you'd like some more information, contact me at 316-4243 or 456-5000 and ask for Brian Jackson.